What's up, people of the internet? In today's video we're going to be going through the 9th edition mission called Vital Intelligence. My name's Alex and you're watching Major League Nerd. Alright guys, so today for Vital Intelligence, the mission rule is if you control an objective at the end of your command phase, it remains under your control until your opponent controls it at any subsequent phase, even if you have no model within range of it. The primary is, this one's a little bit different than your regular primary. Hold 2 is your bare minimum. So not just hold 1, you have to hold 2 or more, you're getting those 5 points for your primary. You hold 3 or more, you're getting 10 points for your primary. And if you get that hold more, you are getting 15 points for your primary. The secondary for this mission, which is optional but specific to this mission, is 1 unit can perform this action at the end of your movement phase if it's within range of an objective and there are no enemies. This action is complete at the end of your next command phase. Score victory points equal to the number of objective markers you control. One thing to note in that is that it doesn't give you specification of if it's a character, infantry, anything like that. It is just 1 unit on the objective with no enemies around. Granted, when they take the action, they cannot shoot, they can't advance, fall back, do any psychic phases, or psychic spells, anything like that. But with that being said, guys, those are the core, rules for this Vital Intelligence mission. We have got the 6 objectives. We got 4 in the middle, 2 in the deployment zones, 1 in each deployment zone, and we've got the 24-inch deployment distance away from each other. We are doing table, quarters, and this is quite an interesting mission. Going back to the mission rule, we see that you no longer have to hold your unit on the objective to capture it. Or I guess once you capture it, it is yours till your opponent takes it away, which I think creates an interesting play and almost changes the way that you'd approach playing this mission with certain armies. There's certain armies that have those backfield units that they don't mind keeping on objectives. Maybe I'm thinking like the humble guardsmen, cultists, those cheaper units that you may be using to fill out a battalion. You may be taking extra of them because they're cheap bodies to hold those objectives. But in this case, you don't even have to worry about holding the objective once it's yours. Again, starting second turn, you'd have to, or starting second turn is when you'd control the objective because you don't control it on your first turn, but you can't get shot off it once you own it. And I think that creates a very interesting dynamic with this because armies that may be focusing on trying to cripple their opponent's ability to score objectives will struggle with this, because unless they shoot them off the first time that they're on that, then that's already captured. Granted, they can send a unit and steal it back, but then that means that they have to dedicate a certain amount of resources to getting there. They can't just shoot someone off of it and be like, hey, that's clear, no one owns that. If you can't have, or if I can't have that, you can't either. No, once you own that, it is yours till your opponent goes over there and licks their finger, puts it on it. They're like, hey, this is mine now, kind of thing. And I think this will be really helpful for units or for armies that have expensive troop units or expensive units in general. Those elite armies, I'm thinking custodes where they've got really expensive troop units, and they don't have quite as many units or models, so they can't necessarily spread across the board. But with this, they can grab the objective and they can move off it. They don't have to worry about their expensive troop unit or maybe a bike unit or whatever it would be sitting on there the entire game. Though there is the counterplay where, because they have such a limited amount of models and units, that they can't necessarily get that board control to prevent an enemy from coming and swooping to steal that. But that does give them potential to grab this and leave. It gives them a bit more mobility, so to speak, in their army, because they can grab this, and then that unit that was once holding it, who typically have to stay there, they can move off it a little bit. Maybe they don't want to go too far, just in case an opponent is going to try to move in and take the objective, but they can stay in the general vicinity, and they don't have to stay exactly on it, which I think is really interesting for this. I think there's a lot of synergy with the secondary, with the raise the banner secondary, which an infantry unit on an objective without any enemies around it, excluding aircraft, of course. They start at the end of their movement phase, and the action completes at the end of their turn. They raise the banner, and that banner stays there till the opponent takes the objective. So these two combined, if you raising the banner and you're grabbing objectives, the banners will continuously score you 1 point per banner up at the end of your command phase. And if you have the objective, which if you have the banner up there, you do have the objective, it's yours. You got a little flag waving, it's like, hey, this is mine, like you know, shove off kind of thing, this is mine. And so that will be scoring you points for the primary as well as the secondary. And so there's a really good synergy there, because you're going to be so focused on holding those objectives. Armies that may be focused on shooting, I think, are going to struggle with this, because depending how you build it, if you're building for more of a static gun line or castle type build, I think you're really going to struggle with this. I think you're going to struggle with 9th edition in general, especially if you're going static gun line. That's not so much a thing anymore. 9th edition is shaking up the meta tremendously, which I'm loving. But if you're going for more of a castle build, you're going for a bit of a slower, I'm going to shoot things then move out, you're probably not going to be scoring much on the primary, if at all, right? You have to have two objectives, so you have to leave your deployment zone to begin with to start scoring points on the primary. And if you're not scoring the primary points till maybe turn 3, turn 2, depending, you know, maybe even turn 3 or 4, depending how aggressive you're being, you may not be able to get those primary points, and it may be too late for you to catch up if your opponents pull far enough ahead. And another thing the shooting armies are going to have troubles with is, because the armies that armies can grab an objective, they can capture it, and it doesn't matter if they don't have to care if they get shot off of it. You're gonna have to shoot something, then they're gonna have to put something on it. They could potentially shoot something off of it, then maybe the next turn deep strike something onto it. I think there's a lot of counterplay in that area, because you can you know, basically blow something off an objective, then you have a bit more, like a bit less board control on your opponent's side, so you can move on to that potentially. But I think those armies with speed, those armies with abilities to redeploy, deep strike, to jump up into deep strike, jump back down, double move, things like that, I think will be really powerful, because you're able to jump around the map, you're able to claim those objectives, and you're able to claim it and then immediately leave. Because even if you not necessarily you hold it for only one turn and your opponent goes to deal with that, if you've got a unit at the bottom corner capturing that objective, and then you deep strike over to the top with maybe you've got maybe a unit of those Grey Knights, not the Strike Force, but the Strike Force with the super cool backpacks that allow them to teleport kind of thing. If you got one of those, you can jump across the board, or swooping hawks that can you know, end their move, or they grab an objective and they can hop back up to the sky, jumping across the map over to the other far corner, which is a solid 48 inches away. I think this creates a lot of space for armies who may not necessarily be the most killy, but those who have a lot of potential for movement shenanigans, just creativity in their stratagems, their movement. There's a heavy focus on doing well in the objective area, the more hold rather than just, hey, murder everything in front of you. And I think this will create some interesting opportunities with Vital Intelligence. And those armies who are a bit more frail won't have to worry quite as much as well, because once they capture it, even if they get shot off, it's not a huge deal because they own it. I think this will really struggle for those slower castle armies, like I've said, because you've got to if you got a slow army, you got to move together. You want those auras to be spread out to as many units as possible. But if you're going to spread out to capture those objectives outside of your deployment zone, you're going to potentially open yourself up to some awkward situations if you don't have all your pieces in the right place. We've got even the center of the battlefield, you're 12 inches away from two objectives, but those objectives, if you're just staying on the objectives themselves, are 24 inches away. The boards, granted, are a lot smaller, which creates those high, I think makes those faster units that much better, but it does mean the smaller board, you know, it's gonna make those ranges a lot much smaller, but still 24 inches isn't bad, and 48 from the farthest ones is a pretty substantial distance for any army to go across without the ability to deep strike or double move. I myself am a Harlequin and Craft Worlds player, so I'm thinking of all those webway shenanigans, those movement after fighting in combat to jump onto things, grab those, maybe to capture them for myself or deny my opponent kind of thing. So I think there's a lot of interesting things for really all armies to do in this. If you're a shooting army, I think really what you're going to want to be focusing on is denying them to even capture that point. I think it's going to be really hard to deny them the very first initial one in their deployment zone. I think that's going to be really tough unless you have something with really long range, basilisks, relic scorpions, things like night spinners, things like that. I think would be really good, but what you want to do, I think, is to deny your opponent the initial capturing of that objective, because if you're able to deny that time and time again, then they won't be able to capture that point and move out. They're either going to, hey, we're going to have to spread out, or we're going to have to, spread out because, he can only shoot so many units, or they're going to have to focus in on one or two objectives at a time, capture it, then move on. So I think the role of a player who's heavily focused on shooting is denying them the initial capturing of those objectives, because once they capture the objective, then it's going to be harder for you if you don't have any mobility to catch up to them. I'm thinking maybe Death Guard, who not necessarily the fastest army, though they do have deep striking Terminator, but can be screened out. If you're running through Plague Burst crawlers, you're going to want to be firing those mortars straight onto the objectives with the enemy troops on it, so then you can deny them capturing it. Maybe you've got some faith in your Terminators to get in there, kind of thing. You eliminate the screen so the Terminators can get a charge in there. But either way, I think this is going to make some really fun and interesting ways for people to play this mission. With that being said, guys, I hope you enjoyed it. It's just a brief look at the 9th edition Vital Intelligence mission. If you guys enjoyed it, hit the thumbs up, slap the subscribe button, ring the bell, do all that goodness. If you didn't, let me know how I can improve, guys. I'm always looking to do better. My name's Alex. This has been Major League Nerd's look at Vital missions. If you guys enjoy this, let me know. Peace.